boundaries in the context of a relationship that is pre-marriage is different from boundaries in a relationship that is post-wedding ceremony.
Being truly comfortable would mean that you really, you feel okay enough to be your complete self around that person.
When my boundary was being busted, it didn't feel good. Felt disrespected. I felt like I couldn't really talk to this person. I couldn't really reason with this person.
Really and truly, some of us, not all, we may very well just be afraid of being alone without actually coming to terms with the fact that we're actually afraid of being alone. How I went about setting that boundary was actually...
Yo, good morning, friends and family. You don't know, it's your boy Darren coming to you again with another episode of the worst relationship advice ever. You definitely should not listen. However, you probably should listen to this one because today I have my good friend LeeAnn Johnson, and she is very wise. Take my word for it. She may look young, but she's wise beyond her years. And so we'll be having a discussion today about boundaries. Yeah, that's what I've been looking at lately this season of the podcast. And I just wanted to invite another perspective than my own. I know you guys are used to seeing just me. Yeah, I know you love to hear from just me, but I do not believe that I have all the wisdom in the world or all the understanding of these topics. As I've said before, I am not a learned person. I have no formal training. And so I believe it is good to invite other perspectives. And so I'm very glad that LeeAnn could be here with me today for us to have this discussion, as you guys can hear more of a female perspective. Yes? So yes, LeeAnn, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
I am well. Thank you for having me.
Great. I'm so glad you could make it. Tell the people a bit more about yourself. You know, what is it that you do? What are your hobbies? Which church do you go to? How long have you been a Christian? You know, elaborate.
Okay, so my hobbies are singing, and I like anything that's serene, like beaches, or anything that's pretty calming. I like peace. I like anything artistic. Yes. I enjoy listening to music as well, and watching your podcast, of course. I actually enjoy watching your podcast.
Thank you.
I attend the Bethel Baptist Church. Woo, woo. Hi, Amanda. And I'm a chef. I'm not sure if that was one of the questions, but I'm a chef. What was the other question?
How long have you been a Christian now? You lose count?
Since I was 7. And I'm 22 now, so I think that's 18 years?
Nice.
Yes, 18 years I've been a Christian. And I was born the 11th of March. Right. Okay, I think that covers it.
All right, wonderful. And LeeAnn, you know, this is a relationship podcast. So have you ever been married before? How many relationships have you ever been in?
Never been married. I have been in 2 relationships. I've been in 2 relationships. But I've never been married, no.
Okay.
Not saying it would have been impossible, but definitely not married.
But it's something that you say you're looking forward to?
Definitely. That is my aim, you know. If it's God's will, then I would definitely love to be married one day. Right.
All right, nice. Cool. So, as I said before, we're talking about boundaries today. Share with the people, what is a boundary to you?
A boundary to me is what one sets in order to maintain the respect. Since that we're speaking in the context of a relationship, then it would be what one or maybe both parties set in order to maintain the relationship, the respect in the relationship.
Yeah, I get you and I agree with that. Yeah, respect is so important to relationship maintenance. Sometimes we can get so focused on love or what we understand love to be, and for a lot of us, love is a very based thing. But coming from a biblical perspective, we understand that respect is a part of love.
Definitely.
Because Paul says in Corinthians 13 that love does not honors others. Right? So if we're honoring each other, we're respecting each other. And I believe to honor somebody else is really to just put them above yourself, put them before yourself. That is how we honor each other. And so, yeah, I agree with you, LeeAnn, that boundaries are the things that we set in our relationships to maintain respect. Yeah. What's an example of a boundary that you have set in a previous relationship?
So a boundary I have set was being intentional in how me and the person at the time communicate with one another.
And how would you say you went about setting that boundary?
Okay, how I went about setting that boundary was actually just really speaking to that person honestly. It was a case where I noticed it when we were having a regular conversation at the time. The first time I noticed it, we were on the phone, and it was a case where there was a lot of misunderstandings and expecting me to understand what it is that he was really trying to say. And honestly, what I have realized is that sometimes what it really just takes is patience, because you can't assume that the person is definitely going to understand what you're saying, how you choose to say it. Right. So honestly, how I went about it was just to really state in the best way possible that I realize that person will be able to receive what I'm saying. So I too was also mindful of how I said, my piece in regards to that issue I was having, and I made sure to really give examples of errors in things that he might have said where it wasn't necessarily clear and concise, or as clear and concise as he may have thought that it really was. So yeah.
Okay, I get you. Yeah, man, that definitely happens in our relationships, because a lot of times something we may be saying may be common sense to us, but not necessarily common sense to the other person. So we may say it with believing that they should just get it, they should just understand, when they may not, because they are a totally different person. They're not able to read our minds, and they don't necessarily have the same background that we have. And so, yes, it does take a bit more effort, a bit more work to communicate clearly and to actually check to see if the person really gets what we're saying before we move on to say something else, So yeah, I definitely understand that. How I would have set a boundary in a previous relationship, say along the lines of communication, is to say we should not butt in on each other when trying to talk, because a simple discussion can easily turn into a heated argument when you have the two people trying to talk over each other and butt in on each other. And that was a difficult boundary for me to set, but I did my best to set it and stick to it. Did your boundary improve your relationship, or did it make things worse?
It actually did improve the relationship. It's actually setting that boundary and seeing how things change over time allowed me to truly realize that everything is really a domino effect. Like, just setting that boundary, of course it took work. So my thing is, don't just set the boundary and expect the person to change overnight, because I didn't expect him to change overnight. But what I admired was effort. And effort, by the way, just not really to sidetrack, but to me, effort is doing something outside of what you've already been doing. So you've been trying. Trying is really not doing the same things, because you know that you've been doing this, it hasn't been working. The true effort would mean you're really doing something outside of what you've already been trying to see if you can have a different outcome. And what a lot of people struggle with is their pride, in my opinion, because maybe it's a case where they don't even know where to start. But what I can say about my partner at the time is that he was actually setting that boundary caused him to really start like saying to me he didn't know where to start. Where do I suggest that he started? And that alone was like a wall broke like already, because that's communication right there. So once that was in place, then another area where I might have had a problem, like for example, him being able to be vulnerable and realizing that it's not him being weak if he's vulnerable with me, that also happened as time went by. So there would be times where, because of the work that we were putting in together, that communication barrier that we had, then he was able to be more vulnerable on his own, in his own time. He felt more, I would say, comfortable, because you can have people and you'd ask them, are you comfortable in your relationship? And they really think they are, because then there's nothing really major that makes them feel uncomfortable. But being truly comfortable would mean that you really, you feel okay enough to be your complete, like you be your complete self around that person, like without any mask, without anything really. You just be your plain self, which I guess would mean transparency, right?
And vulnerability.
Everything just so like there was a time where he started communicating in a way where it tied in with vulnerability, and that showed me improvement, that he was really trying. Right.
Awesome. Unfortunately, not all of us can say the same thing. Some people, they set the boundary, and it helps the relationship to get better. Where the two people are like, okay, they're in agreement with the boundary, and they're now working with what the boundary stipulates. Then there are situations when it doesn't work out so well. Like for me, it didn't work out that well with me in setting the boundary, because the habit that my previous partner had of butting in while I'm speaking is something that she had been doing for years, and she does it with her other friends. She's like, okay, if I can communicate in this way with my other friends and it's okay, it should be okay for you too. But no, it wasn't, because oftentimes I would try to get my point across and she butts in, and I'll sit and listen and let her, finish her sentences and her explanation. And I'm genuinely trying to understand, but then when it came on to me, she typically just respond out of the blue while I'm trying to get my point across. And so it was a habit that was difficult for her to break. And then I kudos to you, hats off to you. You said you were patient with the man. Yes.
Honestly, well, I'm not very patient. That's just the truth. But what I've learned about myself, which, is that once there is communication, then you will allow me to be able to understand. It can allow me to be understanding, which can be synonymous with patience. So, because if I understand, then I won't really be a certain way, So I will be patient. But that point you just raised about your previous partner, I went to an all-girls high school. Shout out St. Andrew High School for girls. Yes, I went to St. Andrew High School, and it was a case where my dad used to say, well, if he came by the school and we were all in the cafeteria during lunch and he happened to come to drop off something, we sounded like a swarm of bees, because it was a culture. Everybody was talking over everybody. You're not really getting any feelings over it. But I do get that there should be a line of distinction in how you speak with your friends and how you speak with your partner. A lot of us are normal. It's actually not normal. And honestly, it would just require work. It's like breaking someone out of a habit, and it takes 90 days. It is said it takes 90 days to form a habit. So honestly, you would just have to decide that in yourself, no, if this is something that you're willing to really undo with this person. Are you really willing to spend time breaking down this challenge that you have with this person? This is something that more than likely she had been building up her entire life. So it's gonna take a lot of work and patience in my opinion, to love somebody for real automatically means that it's unconditional. That's just my opinion. And love in and of itself, in my opinion, again, is giving someone the power to break your heart, but trusting in them not to. So if you really love that person, I think then you can decide for that, okay, yes, I'm really in love with this person. I am going to work with this person. I personally know a couple right now where the wife, she had a lot of problems at first with her husband when they were much younger. And now she's reaping all the blessings that she had prayed to God for. And it took 8 years for him to become that man that she really wanted him to be. Because he had deeper issues stemming from his childhood that him himself didn't realize that as a man, it was actually the root of his problems, his downfalls.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it just takes a fresh pair of eyes and patience and true love. Because if you really love that person, you're going to be that person to really spend time with that person and break down that wall. It's up to you to decide if you really are willing to do that.
Right. I agree with you. And I think what it takes is a level of emotional control in the midst of the frustration that comes from the boundary being broken, you know? Because I can speak for myself in that when my boundary was being busted, it didn't feel good, right? I felt disrespected. I felt like I couldn't really talk to this person. I couldn't really reason with this person. And when they were adamant, because at least in your case, you set the boundary, your person decided to work with you. My person was adamant about busting the boundary, you know, and I just didn't have the patience, you know, and I didn't have the emotional control to stick with it. I think I'm better now, you know, I think I'm healed now. I think I can say at the time that a lot of my joy, or what I perceived joy to be, I expected it to be derived from the health of the relationship, not necessarily from my own internal health. You get me? So because of that, when I was having a hard time getting the relationship to a healthy space, I was like, boy, you know, this don't make no sense. You know, and so I really, I gave up on it. But I think I've grown, and I think I'm better now at extending patience in the midst of my boundary being busted. Yeah.
I totally agree. What I can say though is that we have to also be cognizant that if there is any situation or real problem in a relationship, even if one party is more responsible, it really kind of takes two. Feel like just the fact that you're in a relationship, it's no you guys' problem. You get me? And another thing is that in a situation like that, she may have very well just been really, really stubborn. And sometimes they would like to say, "Oh, we're head tough," but really, it's I don't know if it's a case where she didn't want to work on it. Maybe it could have been a case where she didn't know where to start, like I was mentioning before, and she didn't necessarily communicate that to you, or maybe she didn't even know how to communicate that to you, because she may have wanted to seem like she had everything, you know, all together and sorted out, and yeah.
I can say that one of the things that she wanted was for any time we were to have any relationship conversation, she always wanted for there to be a mediator. So probably that was a boundary that she was, you know, setting with me, which was in conflict with my boundary. Because for me, I want to address the issues as quickly as possible. And a mediator or a counselor isn't always available or always there in the midst of when these issues need to be addressed. You know, so I understood the need from her perspective for a mediator, but then I believed that we could still have the conversation without a mediator if we could just be respectful of each other and allow each other to, you know, complete our sentences and really listen to understand opposed to listening to respond. you know?
That's really deep, actually. I totally agree. And another thing I wanted to mention was that a lot of times, a lot of us enter relationships because really and truly, some of us, not all, we may very well just be afraid of being alone without actually coming to terms with the fact that we're actually afraid of being alone. Or maybe it's a case where we just don't want to be alone. Maybe we actually put a timeline to whoever God has in store for us or whatever it is God really wants for us. Because a lot of times we have our own issues and we may be very narcissistic even towards ourselves, where we think we know we're not perfect, but we think we're okay enough. Sometimes it really starts from within ourselves. I think we need to, in order to know how to love someone else, we need to love ourselves. Anything else that we expect from someone else or we want to do with someone else, we have to first learn to do it with ourselves. That at that point you may just know about true joy. You have to first experience that joy within yourself, because yes, you will love this person, and in the context of a marriage, you start putting that person maybe even before you sometimes, before your own self sometimes. But you truly have to understand what unconditional love is, and then understand how to unconditionally love yourself. And then you will automatically know how to love that person unconditionally, because God's grace is sufficient, and His sufficient grace is one prime example of unconditional love. So when you first understand that, it really is a domino effect, when you really think about it. You're constantly yearning to grow your relationship with God, knowing that the grace is already there. It's just supposed to meet Him halfway,
No.
So we're supposed to understand that as Christians, and then truly experience that within ourselves first. True happiness should lie within yourself. So it's okay if somebody wants to express themselves and say, well, you're my happiness. But really, that shouldn't really be the case. You should be okay if things really don't work out. You should be okay if that person disappoints you. Because truly we disappoint God on a daily basis.
Right.
And God still loves us so much. And that's unconditional love. And that's grace. It's a matter of learning this person for ourselves after we've done all of that. Deciding, is this person somebody I'm willing to extend so much grace upon? And it's a case where we have to understand ourselves in order to know what to do with that person. Because then when you truly understand yourself, you kind of know what it is like. So, okay, it's not so much as, okay, I'm going to leave because this seems like it's not going to work out. Sometimes it just takes hard work, but honestly, it's not to sound cold, but people will make that extra effort when something is within them that say, you know what, do it, because you choose to. Everything is a choice. So it's a matter of if you really want to. And then that's after doing everything within yourself.
Right.
So
I think is boundaries in the context of our relationship that is pre-marriage is different from boundaries in a relationship that is post-wedding ceremony, because oftentimes when you're setting boundaries with a person that you're in a dating, courtship type relationship with, if a person is busting your boundaries at that level, then it's highly likely that this is just not your person. And so it's actually okay to end the relationship and keep it moving, right? But in the context of marriage now, you're pulling out all the stops, making all the effort to stay together. It will take a lot more patience, take a lot more work, a lot more effort. And that's why people generally date and court for long, because they're trying to figure out if this person really aligns with them before taking that plunge into marriage. LeeAnn, final question. What would you say boundaries has taught you about yourself? What have you learned about yourself in setting boundaries?
I've learned about myself that I'm not very patient, like I said before. But like I said, I have discovered that once there is communication, effective communication, that it can allow me to be understanding, which can transpire into me being patient. Yes. So that's what it has taught me about myself. Right.
Nice. Cool. And for me, I have learned that I'm a stickler for time. Yeah. That I don't do very well with people who run late or who cause me to run late. And so I try to set boundaries in that area of my life with the people in my life who my time and their time is intertwined. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, LeeAnn Johnson.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. It was indeed a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
Definitely would like to have you back again sometime in the future.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah man. So guys, big up yourself. Thank you for watching this episode of the Worst Relationship Advice Ever, where we discuss boundaries a bit more. I hope it was insightful. I hope you got some wisdom from LeeAnn, right? And I hope you apply it to your life. Subscribe,
like,
share,
tell a friend.
There's more coming in the future.
Yes.
And we're hopefully gonna grow and get bigger and better. Yes, enough love and respect to you and your family. Walk good and set a boundary today. Big up.
Blessings.